That's kind of where we need to kind of stop and think about what these markets really are, because they aren't physical silver markets. There isn't a physical silver market on the planet Earth right now. You can convert some of these derivatives, silver derivatives on the COMEX or the LBMA. Supposedly you can convert them to physical silver, but there is no pricing mechanism for physical silver on planet Earth today. Will there ever be? And for that matter, there's no pricing mechanism for gold, and there's no pricing mechanism for Bitcoin either. They're all derivative mechanisms, and that's kind of a scary thought. What would a true market in silver? What kind of price would that kick out? If there weren't derivatives attached, you wouldn't see 100, 500,000 times the trades versus the amount of physical available, which you see in silver, gold, and Bitcoin right now. What would a real market be, where you walk in with $1,000 in cash and you walk out with a certain amount of silver? That would be a real market with real market pricing. And is that going to be set up at some time when these derivatives implode? Because there can't be $100 silver prices on the COMEX, because the short position would be too large for any bank, because they have to have a short for every long there's a short. And that would be, that's why they had to protect the $50 silver. Because you need, on those markets, you need someone to take the other side of the trade. So yeah, I think the COMEX and the LBMA will shut down at some point during this transition, which will be very scary for gold and silver holders, because they won't know what their metal's worth. It won't be publicized, other than going down to your local coin shop, and they'd probably close up, because they work on a fiat monetary system. They pay their employees with fiat money. So it's going to be very chaotic when the final bell rings. As bad as the exchanges are with virtual assets, all those things you just said are all virtual as well, and they've been rehypothecated to the thousands percentage as well. The price of the U.S. dollar is determined on the derivative markets. Just look at the derivatives for interest rate swaps and things like that, hundreds of trillions of dollars. What is really being priced here, and how is it priced? And there are, the only free markets, I think, are your local grocery store maybe, but those aren't even free markets, because you've got on the COMEX, they trade wheat futures and oil and gas futures, and prices are determined on the electronic virtual exchange, controlled by the people who control the computers that do the trading. So it does get really confusing as to what is what, and virtual assets will go away. It's amazing that this system, the electronic financial system, which was created in the 1960s and 70s, the guy who first created it was Alan Greenspan, and I've proven that time and time again, and people are just starting to recognize that. But then, it was taken over by the banks. Electronic assets became more and more viable in the late 70s, early 80s, going into the 80s and 90s until today. They are practically, now they're trying to get rid of cash. So it's the virtual assets held by these credits, these banks and 401k companies. They do the same thing that the banks do. It's a virtual system that is massively rehypothecated, meaning they create more, they sell more of these assets than they actually have, and they trade them. That's the key. So yeah, stocks are a fractional reserve system, just like the monetary system is fractional reserve. So fractional reserve systems, when a bank, they'll loan out $10 for every $1, but when people come back to get their money out of the bank, they have to sell off 10-to-1 assets. That's how the implosions happen, and that's how this one will happen. So the same thing will happen with stocks. When people try to get out of the stock market, these brokerage houses who never bought the stock in the first place, they just credited your account and they put everything into a pool. are going to have to go out there and try to sell this stuff. They won't be able to sell. The prices will crash. And then at the end of the day, there's really nothing there. And it's all virtual blips caught up in a bankruptcy that cannot be resolved, really. The only way to resolve the unwinding of this fractional reserve system that we live in is to destroy it all, unfortunately. It's not necessarily that they trust the blips. They trust the establishments that hold their wealth for them. So they trust in Bank of America and Wells Fargo Bank and Bankers Trust and Schwab, and because those were the solid granite establishments of their youth, and no, they can't go away, and Morgan Stanley can't go away, and they had trust in that, and then over time they believed in that they didn't have to hold the stock certificates and all that, and because back in when they were kids, they had stock certificates that they held in their in their safe deposit box, and there was very little. Well, it probably was rehypothecation, but nothing like we have now with high frequency trading and algo trading and all that. These shares are traded. I think on the average, it's like every 10 days, the total float of the company is traded back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. When 90% of these people never trade their stocks, they just keep it in their account and they don't think about it and don't talk about it. And they look and see if it goes up every quarter based on the statement that they're given. But they've never bought those stocks. Those stocks were never put in their name. They were even not even bought for the most part. Maybe 1 in 10 was purchased by Schwab or their retirement company. But they're put into a pool, and that pool is held by Seed and Company, which is the DTCC holding company, which I wouldn't say nobody knows who owns Seed and Company, because there was a congressional investigation in the 1970s. They did find out who it was, and it is a specific entity, supposedly. A lot of people think it's the Rothschilds, and it could be, or it could be some other entity. We don't know. But legal ownership of a share of stock is only enforceable if you have a justice system behind it and a cop to go out and say, yes, Mr. Rothschild owns the entire earth. And would the people allow that? No, they're not gonna. So there's no reason to add layers of risk to your assets. If you don't hold it, that's another layer of risk. So a lot of people say, oh, Canada's a better place to store your metal. My take is, if you're Canadian and live in Canada and want one layer of risk, if you're an American living in America, you have 2 layers of risk. One, you're not a citizen, and most likely when the monetary system collapses, we will go back to some form of gold and silver monetary system, either a backing of currency or something to that effect. And I would assume every nation in the world will be closing their borders to any gold and silver leaving their country in that scenario. That's why all this gold and silver is in these exchanges are held in London, is because England knows if you don't hold it, you don't own it, and they will nationalize all that metal. And I don't believe in a third party storage unless you have to. Unless there are reasons that you have to. Or that you want to, some of these gold or silver backed credit cards. I think it's a great idea, because we still have to use credit cards while the system is going. But don't keep a lot of your metal there, just enough to facilitate your transactions. But I would say only if you have to. Why add layers of risk of having your metal or your Bitcoin not in your own possession? If you're looking at a scenario where the government of Canada, if there is a financial collapse and gold and silver do go crazy, stratospheric type numbers, you're going to have every citizen in Canada saying, oh my God, we have nothing. We've lost everything. What's within our border? What can we get our hands on and redistribute wealth to our nation? That's what's going to happen. And that's why I'm so I'm anti mining companies and mining company shares because I know the value that they possess is so great and will be in such need by humanity when this thing falls apart that no country is going to allow people to own the nation's wealth and control the nation's wealth after this crash, because everybody will have lost everything. They can vote you out of your wealth in a blink of an eye.
Very good point.
Now, and that has to do with the large depositories as well. Now these depositories, don't forget that they have their employees and they have a business to run as well that runs off fiat money. They will not have the fiat money. You can't pay the guards to guard the wealth, and the guards are, they have lost everything as well, and they're standing there with the keys to the safe, and their family is at home starving. They're going to open the safe, take the metal back to their family, and try to ride out this thing with that wealth is my position. If the government doesn't come in first and seize it and say, hey, this is for the good of the citizens, we're going to have to confiscate this wealth. We'll give you something, maybe, depends what country you're in. In the United States, they'll probably, they'll give you the value that gold and silver was right before the crash, type of thing, but something, they're not going to let you be the wealthiest human on earth while the rest of their population is dying off. I'm not convinced that silver will be reintroduced as a monetary instrument. And the reason for that is just what you said. There are better uses for silver, physical silver, than on the monetary side. Back when silver was money, back, electronics weren't that big. There weren't a lot of other uses, in historical money for gold and silver. Silver is the best conductor of electricity. It has so many other industrial applications that I think in the long run, gold will be used as a monetary instrument, because I know there's a lot more gold out there than what we're being told by the mainstream. I think, and the Road to Ruta work and the publications that came out of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston are screaming that. Especially this little booklet that was released the same day as the Road to Ruta comics. It's called Banking Basics, and it shows, it talks about the basics of banking. But the pictures in it show little kids going into a bank with, exchanging paper for these like 20 large 1-ounce gold coins, and people standing in line with gold coins in their hands at an ATM and things like that. So there are hints that, and just the front of the new $100 bill has gold all over it. It talks about overthrowing your government written in gold. So yeah, I think gold is going to be a part of our monetary future. I think Bitcoin will be part of our monetary future. I don't think silver will be, because I think it'll be too valuable to waste as money. Silver has always been the people's money because there was not a lot of other use for silver. Back in the early days, it was more plentiful than gold. Now it's kind of the opposite. There's a lot of use for silver, and I don't even think it's as plentiful as gold. I think this gold-silver ratio will be closer to 1-to-1 when this is all over. I think there have been hidden technologies over the past 100 years, hidden by our government against us, because they did not want to disrupt the monetary system. The petrodollar type of system would have been disrupted if you came out with free energy made with this, these silver batteries or things like that, or very cheap energy. That's the stuff that's being hidden from us, has been hidden from us since before Tesla's time. So yeah, I think the future, and this all kind of comes back to what is Trump gonna let the people be aware of, and are we gonna have this huge rush of a technological tidal wave flow over us with the release of all these incredible inventions that have been hidden from us over the past, who knows, at least 100 years. And I think that's the most exciting thing. And then there's new stuff, potentially coming out of like Antarctica that a lot of people are talking about, and technology down there. But I think just the hidden patents that have, for national security issues, have been hidden away. I think just that stuff will make the price of silver just go through the roof. I mean, they've been able to extract hydrogen from water, H2O. How hard is it to do that and then burn hydrogen? Or magnetic energy or 0 point energies. There's so many energies and ways to do things better than the petroleum-based
Ugh.
system. And such a huge chunk of humanity's energy and jobs and everything is like involved in that industry,
Mhm.
that it got to a point where they said, even if we wanted to release it, we couldn't because of the disruption.
Right. Right.
And but now everything's going to get disrupted anyway when you end this fiat monetary system, and the way to end it is just to stop the market rigging.
Mhm.
And that would end everything, because the derivative system would blow and that would take everything else out. So yeah, it's all possible once we shut this monetary system down, and that's where the bad guys get their power too, is the unbacked fiat system. And you take that down and they don't have any henchmen to run around and cause trouble, and George Soros would be shut down.